The ballroom pulsed with opulence, a glittering cage of wealth and whispers. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars above Manhattan's elite, their laughter sharp as glass. At the center of it all stood Amara Cole, CEO of Horizon Innovations, her deep red gown a bold slash against the monochrome elegance of the gala. Her presence commanded the room, but not in the way she'd hoped. Eyes lingered, not with admiration, but with something colder disdain, curiosity, or both. She was the only black woman in a sea of privilege, and the weight of that singularity pressed against her chest. Amara had built Horizon from nothing, a tech empire born in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, fueled by grit and genius. Tonight, she was here to accept an award for innovation, a rare nod from an industry that rarely saw her as one of their own. But as she stepped toward the podium, a voice cut through the hum of the crowd, sharp and deliberate. Surprised they let her in, sneered Victoria Langston, matriarch of the Langston dynasty, her diamond necklace glinting as she leaned toward her son, Ethan. Probably a diversity quota. The words landed like a slap, and the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Amara's reaction. She didn't flinch. Her smile, polished and unyielding, stayed fixed as she gripped the podium. "Thank you for this honor," she began, her voice steady, resonant. But inside, fury simmered. The Langstons were no strangers to her. Their empire Langston Enterprises dominated real estate, media, and tech, their names synonymous with untouchable power. They tried to buy Horizon out years ago, offering pennies for her life's work. When she refused, Ethan had smirked, saying, "You'll regret this." Now, here they were, mocking her in front of New York's elite. Amara's speech was flawless, a masterclass in grace under fire. She spoke of innovation, of breaking barriers, her words weaving a vision of a future where talent trumped pedigree. The crowd applauded, some with genuine awe, others with grudging respect. But as she stepped down, Victoria's voice carried again. "She talks a good game for someone who's just lucky." The room rippled with stifled laughter, and Amara's jaw tightened. She caught Ethan's eye, his smirk a mirror of his mother's. This wasn't just a slight, it was a declaration of war. Back at her table, Amara sipped her champagne, her mind racing. She'd spent years navigating rooms like this, where her brilliance was overshadowed by her skin. The Langstons weren't just rich, they were gatekeepers, their influence sprawling across industries, their prejudice cloaked in polished smiles. But Amara wasn't here to play their game. She was here to rewrite the rules. As the gala continued, she scanned the room, noting allies and enemies. There was Marcus Tate, a venture capitalist who'd backed her early on, nodding subtly from across the room. And there was Claire Nguyen, a journalist known for exposing corporate corruption, her eyes sharp and curious. Amara's plan was already forming, a quiet storm gathering strength. By the time dessert was served, the Langstons' mockery had spread, a whisper campaign painting Amara as an outsider, a fluke. She overheard a board member from a rival firm mutter, "She's no threat. Horizon's a flash in the pan." But Amara wasn't listening to their words anymore. She was thinking of the data breach she'd uncovered last month, sensitive files from Langston Enterprises, carelessly secured, hinting at shady deals and offshore accounts. She hadn't acted on it yet, but tonight, the gloves were off. As the night wound down, Amara slipped out to the balcony, the city skyline a glittering backdrop. Marcus joined her, his voice low. "They're scared of you, Amara. That's why they're doing this." She nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "They should be," she said softly. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every person who'd been dismissed, diminished, or erased by people like the Langstons. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And she was just getting started. Amara returned to her office at Horizon Innovations the next morning, the sting of the gala still fresh. Her team greeted her with warmth, oblivious to the venom she'd faced. Her COO, Javier Ruiz, handed her a coffee, his eyes scanning her face. "You okay, boss? You look like you're planning a war." She gave a tight smile. Something like that. She didn't share the details, not yet. But the Langstons' mockery had lit a fuse, and Amara was done playing defense. She spent the day diving into the data breach she'd flagged. Months ago, a whistleblower had slipped her a USB drive at a conference. Its contents encrypted but damning: emails, financial records, and contracts from Langston Enterprises. The files suggested tax evasion, insider trading, and deals with questionable foreign entities. Amara had hesitated to act, wary of the fallout. But last night's humiliation changed everything. She called in her head of cybersecurity, Lena Carter, a brilliant hacker-turned-executive who'd grown up in the same Brooklyn neighborhood as Amara. "I need you to verify this," Amara said, handing over the drive. "If it's real, we're going nuclear." Lena spent hours decrypting and cross-referencing the files. By dusk, she returned, her face grim. "It's real. And it's worse than you thought. They're not just dodging taxes, they're funneling money through shell companies to fund political campaigns that push divisive rhetoric. Anti-immigrant, anti-minority stuff. It's ugly." Amara's stomach churned. The Langstons weren't just arrogant. They were dangerous. She thought of her parents, immigrants who'd worked grueling jobs to give her a shot at this life. This wasn't just personal Anna Marie, it was bigger. Amara reached out to Claire and Gwen, the journalist from the Gala. They met at a nondescript diner in Queens, far from prying eyes. Claire listened, her pen flying across her notebook as Amara outlined the data. "This could bring them down," Claire said, her voice laced with excitement. "But it's risky. They'll come for you." Amara nodded. "Let them try." She handed over a redacted copy of the files, keeping the originals as leverage. Claire promised to dig deeper, her sources in Washington already buzzing with interest. Meanwhile, the Langstons weren't idle. Ethan, emboldened by the Gala, launched a smear campaign. Anonymous posts on X painted Amara as a fraud, questioning her credentials and Horizon's success. Industry blogs picked up the chatter, and by week's end, Horizon stock dipped 3%. Javier urged Amara to hit back publicly, but she refused. "They want a spectacle," she said. "I'm not giving them one." Instead, she worked in the shadows, meeting with Marcus Tate to secure funding to weather the storm. Marcus, a black man who'd faced his own battles in the finance world, understood her strategy. "You're playing chess while they're playing checkers," he said, pledging his support. Amara also reached out to a former Langston employee, Sarah Brooks, who'd left the company under murky circumstances. Over coffee, Sarah revealed she'd been pushed out after questioning unethical practices. "They're untouchable," Sarah warned. "They've got lawyers, politicians, and media in their pocket." Amara leaned forward. Not for long. She offered Sarah a job at Horizon, a chance to fight back. Sarah hesitated, then nodded, her eyes hard with resolve. By the time Claire's first article dropped, a teaser hinting at Langston's financial misconduct, the city was abuzz. Amara watched the X posts explode, some calling for accountability, others defending the Langstons as pillars of industry. Victoria Langston issued a statement dismissing the claims as baseless, but Amara could sense the cracks forming. She wasn't just reacting anymore, she was setting the stage for a reckoning. The city felt like a pressure cooker as Claire's full exposé hit the stands. The headline screamed, Langston Empire built on lies, tax evasion, bribery uncovered. The article detailed shell companies, offshore accounts, and campaign contributions tied to hate groups. Amara read it at her desk, her heart pounding. The data she provided was now a weapon, sharp and public. X was on fire with reactions. Some praised Claire's journalism. Others called it a witch hunt. The Langstons, predictably, lawyered up, their PR team flooding the airwaves with denials. But the damage was done. Investors pulled back, and Langston Enterprises stock plummeted 10% in a day. Amara's phone buzzed with messages from allies and skeptics alike. Javier burst into her office, grinning. You did it, Amara. They're bleeding. But she shook her head. This isn't victory. It's just the opening move. She knew the Langstons would retaliate, and she braced for impact. Sure enough, Ethan Langston escalated the war. He leaked doctored emails suggesting Amara had bribed regulators to fast-track Horizon's patents. The accusations were flimsy, but they gained traction in certain circles, fueling the narrative that Amara was the villain. A rival tech firm, quietly backed by Langston money, filed a lawsuit against Horizon, claiming intellectual property theft. The media lapped it up, painting Amara as a schemer who'd risen too fast, too far. At a board meeting, one of Horizon's investors, a nervous white man named Greg Palmer, suggested she step down for the company's sake. Amara's eyes burned into him. I built this company, she said, her voice low and lethal. I don't run from fights. Outside the boardroom, the world was watching. Protesters gathered outside Langston Enterprises headquarters, chanting for justice. Amara saw the footage on X, her heart swelling at the sight of young people Black, Latino, Asian demanding accountability. But she also saw counter-protesters, waving signs about preserving American values, a dog whistle for the Langstons' base. The city was splitting along fault lines of race and power, and Amara felt the weight of it all. She met with Sarah Brooks again, this time at Horizon's offices. Sarah brought a new piece of the puzzle, a recorded conversation between Ethan and a lobbyist, discussing payoffs to squash a federal investigation. I kept this as insurance, Sarah admitted. I was scared to use it. Amara took the recording, her mind racing. This was dynamite, but using it meant exposing Sarah to the Langstons' wrath. Are you sure? Amara asked. Sarah nodded. They took everything from me. Let's take them down. Amara passed the recording to Claire, who verified it with her sources. The journalist was relentless, working late nights to corroborate every detail. Meanwhile, Amara fortified Horizon, hiring a top-tier legal team and rallying her employees. At an all-hands meeting, she stood before her team engineers, marketers, coders from every background and laid it bare. They're coming for us because we threaten their world, she said. But we're stronger than their lies. The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in days, Amara felt a flicker of hope. But hope was fragile. That night, as she left the office, a brick shattered her car window, a note taped to it, leave or lose. Her security team whisked her away, but the message was clear. The Langstons weren't just fighting in boardrooms, they were playing dirty. Amara clutched the note, her resolve hardening. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone they'd tried to silence. The brick through Amara's window was just the beginning. The Langstons unleashed a full-scale assault, their influence flexing like a muscle. A major news outlet, rumored to be in their pocket, ran a hit piece calling Amara a race-baiting opportunist. The lawsuit against Horizon gained momentum, with depositions scheduled to drain her resources. On X, bots amplified the smear campaign, flooding her mentions with slurs and threats. Amara's team urged her to go public, to fight fire with fire, but she held firm. "We don't stoop to their level," she told Javier. "We dismantle them with truth." Claire's second article dropped, this time with the recording. The audio was grainy but unmistakable, Ethan's voice, smug and careless, promising a lobbyist whatever it takes to bury an investigation. The fallout was immediate. Federal regulators announced a probe into Langston Enterprises, and their stock tanked another 15%. Victoria Langston appeared on TV, her face a mask of outrage, calling the recording fabricated. But the public wasn't buying it. Protests grew, spilling into other cities: Chicago, Atlanta, L.A., as the Langstons became a symbol of unchecked privilege. Amara, meanwhile, faced her own battles. The lawsuit was a distraction, but a costly one. Her legal team uncovered ties between the rival firm and Langston Enterprises, proving collusion. She presented the evidence to her board, silencing Greg Palmer's doubts. But the personal toll was mounting. Her mother called, her voice trembling. "Amara, this is too dangerous. Why don't you stop?" Amara gripped the phone, her throat tight. "Because if I stop, they win. And I can't let them." She leaned on her inner circle: Javier, Lena, Sarah, and Marcus for strength. Lena's team worked overtime, securing Horizon's servers against cyber attacks traced to Langston's allies. Marcus funneled emergency funds to keep the company afloat. Sarah, now a Horizon consultant, dug deeper into Langston's operations, uncovering a pattern of workplace discrimination. Former employees, mostly people of color, had been fired or pushed out after raising concerns. Amara saw a chance to flip the narrative. She asked Sarah to connect her with these workers, building a coalition of voices the Langstons couldn't ignore. The confrontation came at a tech summit in San Francisco, where Amara and Ethan were both keynote speakers. The tension was palpable as they shared the stage, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Ethan went first, his speech a slick defense of meritocracy that thinly veiled his family's agenda. When Amara took the mic, she didn't hold back. "This industry thrives on innovation," she said, her eyes locked on Ethan. "But it's poisoned by those who think power is their birthright." She shared stories from Langston's former employees, anonymous, but searing, detailing racism and retaliation. The crowd was silent, then erupted in applause. Ethan's face was stone, but Amara saw the fear in his eyes. Backstage, he cornered her, his voice low. "You're digging your own grave, Cole." She stepped closer, unflinching. "No, Ethan. I'm digging yours." The summit became a turning point. Ex-posts hailed Amara as a hero, while the Langstons' allies scrambled to control the narrative. But the tide was turning, and Amara could feel it. She wasn't just fighting for Horizon, she was fighting for a world where people like her could stand tall without apology. The Langston empire began to crumble, piece by piece. The federal probe deepened, with subpoenas issued for Victoria and Ethan. Claire's reporting, backed by Amara's data and Sarah's testimony, kept the pressure on. A third article revealed Langston's ties to a network of discriminatory hiring practices, sparking lawsuits from former employees. The protests outside their headquarters grew louder, more diverse, a chorus of voices demanding change. Amara watched it unfold from her office, a mix of triumph and exhaustion washing over her. But the Langstons weren't done. Victoria, desperate to save face, announced a diversity initiative at Langston Enterprises, a transparent PR stunt. She invited Amara to a public meeting, framing it as a truce. Amara saw through Ida trap to paint her as unreasonable if she refused. Against Javier's advice, she accepted. "I'm not hiding," she told him. "Let them try to spin this." The meeting was held at a sleek midtown conference center. Cameras rolling. Victoria played the gracious host. Her smile brittle. "We're here to move forward," she said, gesturing to Amara. "Ms. Cole, we value your perspective." Amara stood, her presence commanding. "This isn't about perspective," she said. "It's about accountability. Your company has profited off division for decades. Words won't fix that, actions will." She laid out demands, an independent audit of Langston's practices, reparations for wrongfully terminated employees, and a public apology. The room gasped, but Amara didn't waver. Victoria's face reddened, her composure cracking. "You're overstepping," she hissed. Amara smiled. "No, I'm just getting started." The meeting was a disaster for the Langstons. Ex-posts dissected Victoria's defensiveness, and the hashtag Hold Langston Accountable trended for days. More employees came forward, their stories flooding the media. The lawsuits piled up, and Langston's board began to fracture, with 2 members resigning under pressure. Amara, meanwhile, faced her own challenges. The lawsuit against Horizon was dismissed, but the legal fees had drained millions. Her team was stretched thin, and the threats hadn't stopped. A late-night email warned, "You can't win this war." She forwarded it to Lena, who traced it to a burner account linked to Ethan's assistant. Amara doubled down, rallying her coalition. She met with the former Langston employees, listening to their stories of being silenced, overlooked, or fired for speaking out. Their pain mirrored her own, and she vowed to amplify their voices. With Claire's help, she organized a press conference where the employees shared their experiences. One, a black engineer named Malik, spoke of being passed over for promotions despite outperforming his peers. "They wanted me invisible," he said, "but Amara gave me a voice." The crowd roared, and Amara felt tears prick her eyes. This was bigger than her now. By month's end, Langston Enterprises was hemorrhaging. Their stock was in freefall, and major clients pulled out, citing ethical concerns. Amara's strategy, methodical, relentless, rooted in truth, was working. But she knew the final blow was coming, and it would test everything she'd built. The collapse came faster than anyone expected. A federal raid on Langston Enterprises' offices uncovered documents confirming the exposé's claims, tax evasion, bribery, and campaign finance violations. Victoria and Ethan were indicted, their faces splashed across every news outlet. The footage of Victoria being let out in handcuffs, her designer suit rumpled, became a viral moment. On X, the reaction was split. Some mourned the fall of an American institution. Others celebrated the end of an era of corruption. Amara watched the news from Horizon's conference room. Her team gathered around her. Javier raised a glass. "To justice," he said. But Amara's face was somber. "It's not over," she said. "They'll fight to the end." She was right. Even as their empire crumbled, the Langstons' allies launched a final counterattack. A smear campaign targeted Horizon's board, accusing them of financial mismanagement. Anonymous threats flooded Amara's inbox, and a fire broke out at one of Horizon's warehouses. Arson, the police suspected. The message was clear: the Langstons might be down, but they weren't out. Amara refused to cower. She hired private security and moved her parents to a safe location. Lena's team traced the new smear campaign to a PR firm tied to Ethan's college friend, proving the Langstons were still pulling strings. Amara took the evidence to Claire, who published a follow-up exposing the retaliation. The public backlash was swift, and the PR firm dropped the Langstons as clients. Amara also reached out to the protesting employees, offering them resources to file their lawsuits. "You're not alone," she told them. "We're in this together." The turning point came at a shareholder meeting for Langston Enterprises. With Victoria and Ethan sidelined, the board was desperate to save the company. Amara, invited as a consultant by a dissenting board member, walked into the lion's den. The room was tense, the remaining executives eyeing her with a mix of fear and resentment. She didn't waste time. "Your company is dying because it was built on lies," she said. "But it can be rebuilt by centering the people you've ignored." She proposed a radical restructuring, diversify the board, settle the lawsuits, and invest in communities harmed by Langston's policies. Half the room scoffed, but the other half listened. A young board member, Elena Torres, spoke up. "She's right. We can't keep doing this." The vote was close, but Elena's faction won, ousting the old guard. Amara walked out of the meeting, her head high. Ex-posts praised her as a visionary, but she felt no triumph. The cost had been immense: sleepless nights, fractured relationships, the constant fear of retaliation. She thought of her parents, her team, the employees she'd fought for. This wasn't about winning. It was about building something better. With the Langstons' empire in ruins, Amara turned her focus to healing. Horizon had weathered the storm, but the scars remained: financial strain, employee burnout, and a lingering sense of vulnerability. She called a company-wide retreat, bringing her team to a quiet upstate resort. There, she laid out her vision, not just to survive, but to thrive. "We're more than a company," she told them. "We're a movement." She announced a new initiative, Horizon Rising, to fund tech education for underserved communities. The room buzzed with excitement, and for the first time in months, Amara saw her team's fire reignited. The Langstons, meanwhile, faced their reckoning. Victoria and Ethan pleaded guilty to lesser charges, avoiding prison but losing their influence. Langston Enterprises was sold off in pieces, its assets redistributed to competitors and startups, including Horizon. Amara didn't gloat. She used the acquisition to expand Horizon's reach, hiring more diverse talent and launching projects that prioritized social impact. Sarah Brooks led a new division focused on workplace equity, drawing from her own experience to create policies that empowered employees. Claire's reporting won a Pulitzer, and she dedicated the award to Amara and the whistleblowers who'd risked everything. At the ceremony, Amara sat in the audience, her heart full. She thought of the gala, a lifetime ago, when the Langstons' mockery had set this all in motion. Their words had meant to break her, but instead, they'd forged her into something stronger. She'd turned their hate into fuel, their lies into truth. But the fight wasn't over. Amara knew the systems that propped up the Langstons were still intact, embedded in boardrooms and institutions across the country. She met with activists, policymakers, and community leaders, sharing her story and listening to theirs. On X, she posted a simple message: "Change starts with us. Keep fighting." It went viral, shared by thousands, from students to CEOs. Amara became a symbol, not of revenge, but of resilience. At home, she finally let herself rest. She cooked dinner with her parents, laughing over old stories. Her mother hugged her, whispering, "You made us proud." Amara smiled, but her mind was already on the next battle. The world was watching, and she was ready to lead. A year later, Amara stood at the podium of Horizon's annual gala, a far cry from the night that had sparked her war. The room was filled with faces of every hue, from tech pioneers to community activists. Horizon Rising had already funded scholarships for hundreds of students, and Amara's coalition of former Langston employees had won their lawsuits, securing millions in settlements. The Langstons were a footnote now, their name synonymous with hubris and downfall. Amara's speech was different this time. She spoke of hope, of building bridges where walls once stood. "We don't win by tearing others down," she said. "We win by lifting each other up." She shared stories of Horizon's new hires, young coders from the Bronx, engineers from immigrant families, dreamers who'd been given a chance. The crowd rose to their feet, their applause a roar of solidarity. After the gala, Amara stepped onto the balcony, the city skyline shimmering before her. Marcus joined her, his smile warm. "You changed the game, Amara." She shook her head. "We did. All of us." She thought of Lena, Javier, Sarah, Claire, Malik, the countless people who'd fought alongside her. She thought of the kids in Horizon Rising's programs, coding their futures in classrooms that once seemed out of reach. This was her legacy, not just a company, but a movement. On X, the conversation continued. Posts celebrated Horizon's rise, Amara's leadership, and the broader fight for equity. But there were still voices of hate, remnants of the Langstons' world, pushing back. Amara didn't flinch. She knew the work was far from done, but she also knew her strength. She'd faced the worst and come out stronger, not because she was fearless, but because she'd learned to carry fear and keep moving. As the city glowed below, Amara made a silent vow to keep fighting, not for revenge, but for a world where no one had to face what she did. She wasn't just a Siash, was a force, a beacon, a promise that truth and resilience could topple even the mightiest empires. And in that moment, under the stars, she felt unstoppable,